Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stassi. Thank you so much for being here today. I am so excited to have Rhea back here today. Also, fellow Canadian simmer. Love to talk to my Canadian simmers. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, and
That's
I'm very happy to come and talk to you again.
Yes, I'm excited. You're now in my neck of the woods
Yeah.
when it comes to baking. Technically, I like I could go by Chef Hill if I so chose to because I have my seal. I was gonna be like a dick being like with Rhea and Chef Hill, and they'd be like, who's this? Who's that? There's only two people here.
Yes, chef.
Yes, chef. Thank you, chef. Yes, chef. Yeah, no, I'm so excited to have you back. Before we dive in, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Um, I go by Reekyteek in like the Sims, but in regular life, my name is Rhea, and I am a Canadian. I'm around mid-30s, and I have been baking since I was a kid, from helping my mom
Mhm.
bake to now I teach her a thing or two.
I love that. Did you ever consider going to culinary school?
No, I never did. I was always more of a science kid.
Okay.
Um, so that's why I did massage therapy,
Oh, okay.
actually.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. Or do you practice in massage therapy now?
I don't. I got fairly ill while I was in massage therapy school,
Oh, okay.
and sorry, that's my alarm.
That's okay. We started early. It's okay.
Well, I didn't want to miss it, so I put an alarm. Yeah, so I got fairly ill and I practiced for a couple years, and then it was too much. So I stopped working entirely, and then I got to bake more.
Okay.
Not that I quit working to bake,
No.
but
Hey, it's totally okay. I gotta ask, how's the weather where you are? Like where you are? Because
um
it's about to fucking storm here.
yeah, my sister just had the storm, and she's
Okay.
like, this is coming your way, and it passed her by already, and like it was like her house was in a car wash, and
Mhm.
then it's like blue skies now.
That's crazy. I can't believe a tornado touched down in Ottawa this week though, and like
That
destroyed a
is
lot of homes.
crazy. Or
It's fucking
not, sorry. That's a word that is not the best to use for
I
things that are not.
I feel like that's a word like 20, 30 years from now, like we won't use. I think it's in our vocabulary. I would say it was intense. Would that be a better?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was wild.
Wild.
Intense,
Better,
like,
yes. I like wild better. It was. I had no idea. I just because I'm about like 2 hours away from you, and I got the notification. I was like, oh, whatever. Like, I'm sure they'll be fine. And then I got home. It's like, oh, 125 people lost their homes, and I was like, oh my God. This is like the most
this is
wild summer for Ontario. Would you not agree?
yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
don't know how many days we've had smog advisories from the forest fires, severe rain. I think three tornadoes have touched down in the last like 2 weeks. One was up north and one was in Wasaga. I'm like, and then Ottawa this past week. Guys, climate change is real and we need to talk about it like a
Yeah,
lot.
because
It
tornadoes are not usually a thing here.
no,
Like,
it's
you might have like a warning, but it never actually comes to pass.
right
And now
now,
it has.
but now you have to take those warnings like super seriously. Anytime now I see well, the alerts and stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take this a little bit more seriously. I think the word okay, funny but bad, and I don't know why people do this. You know the alerts that we get on our phone that like scare the shit out of us, and they usually sometimes will go off at like 2 in the morning. I still can't believe that people call the police because the alarm woke them up. Like that shit
Oh, for
irritates
goodness.
me.
That's like, I have this like pet peeve because I currently live in Toronto. And so
Yeah.
you'd be like walking down the street, and then the fire truck will come through, and all
Yeah.
the cars stop and pull to the side. But the pedestrians are just walking through in front of the truck. And it's like, no. Like,
No.
when you hear the siren, that means everybody stop and don't be in the road because there's a truck, there's an ambulance, there's a fire truck, there's a police car. Like, for one thing, it's dangerous because you might get hit. And for another thing, like somebody needs help and needs you not to be in the way.
I know. We were in Toronto last weekend because I was picking some stuff up for the wedding, and there was an ambulance behind us, and like we pull it out of the way, but like the fucking pedestrians, I was like, that shit would not fly here. Like no, you would get blared. Like pedestrians in Toronto scare the shit out of me because they don't fucking know where they're going. They're looking down on their phones, and they just walk in front of you. Like the car is expected to stop, but like we don't know what you're doing. You just start walking. Like get the fuck out of here.
Or like even like because I'm a cautious person in general. So like I love to go for walks in the city, and I love to go for walks early in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing like a high vis vest and like a light and like, you know, all this stuff because it's like or if it's raining, like even in the middle of the day, if it's raining, I'll be like, yeah, see me. I don't want to be hit by a car.
Well, absolutely. Because I get cars, I get like I cannot, anytime I'm in Toronto, I have to either be asleep or not looking because I can't take the constant stop, go, stop, go, stop, go, or the aggressive driving. Like in Toronto driving, yellow is green and red is yellow when it comes to traffic lights. And I'm like,
no.
No. Anyways, Canadians.
Yes.
We talk about the weather.
We do.
We do.
Seriously.
That was a huge part of the Canadian podcast. We talked about like how you know you're Canadian.
I listened to the Canadian podcast, and one thing I have to say is that you guys were talking about how Canadians don't actually leave their doors unlocked.
Yes.
That depends where you live.
Okay.
Because my relatives in Nova Scotia will leave their keys in the car with the doors unlocked and everything.
Yeah.
Like
that shit ain't flying in Southwestern Ontario. I can say that. I guess it is. I guess it's where I think the misconception is it's every place is like we just leave the doors unlocked. Come on in. Like no.
Yeah.
You die. You'd get stabbed if they did that. We don't like, shoot people. We stab people.
I don't know. Like I'm not even that worried about people coming in. Like the one time somebody like one time people mistook us for an Uber.
Okay.
Which was kind of funny. And they came in and we were like, hello? And they're like, you're my Uber, right? No. And then they got right out and it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
But like, you know, it's funny. Like the reason I lock my doors is because I read this thing about this serial killer who considered a locked door an invitation. And that freaked me out. You know, like people who keep a baseball bat beside the shower, like, you know, just in case there's someone hiding behind the curtain. It's like, you know, you don't really think that there's going to be someone there, but you're scared that there might be.
100%. Holy shit. Like if my fiance's gone for the weekend, because he usually goes when I have filming weekends, and I'll be lying in bed and I'll hear a crack and I'm like, please let that be the cat. Please let that be the cat. Because I don't want to get up. Because what the fuck am I going to do? I'm like 5 feet tall. Like, I mean, I can punch you in the balls. I can like kick you in the dick, but like I can, you know, use my Sing, which is Miss Congeniality, which is now on Canadian Netflix, which I've watched like 100 times since it's been on in the last like 2 months. Yo, have what's it? Self-defense classes. Like exactly, Sing. I think it's like the grind, stomach, something else, and something else.
No, it was solar plexus, incept, nose, groin.
Yes, that's how you know that movie plays so much in Canada. We just watch it at any time. But to be honest, that is a movie. No matter where it is, I will stop and watch it. It could be 10 minutes in. We could have 10 minutes left. It's such a great movie. It doesn't need to.
It is a great movie. Although I don't really watch movies anymore.
I'm the biggest movie buff. I'm so excited by the time this comes out. With this movie, like this will have both movies will have already come out. But I'm so excited for Barbie Oppenheimer. Literally, I convinced my fiance to do a double feature with me to see both back.
Oh wow. That's going to be two very different.
I know. But that's a huge thing is Barbie Oppenheimer. And I didn't realize to like how like people, I was like, I had joked about it like a month ago, being like, oh, like let's see both movies like back to back to each other. And then this week it was like, oh no, like this is like legit. Like people like they're doing double features with each other. They're selling merch with both of the shows on like movies on there. And I'm like, I will send it to you after. It's legit. I was like,
Wow.
hmm. So happy I hope every happy Barbie Oppenheimer to anybody listening to this. I hope you enjoyed both films. But anyways, we're here to talk about baking.
Yes, baking.
Let's talk about baking. So I've done both home style baking and professional baking, and they are the same but different. I want to hear what it's like for you to be a home style baker, and I'll talk about what it's like to be a professional baker, and then we'll compare notes. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, you go first.
So I started baking with my mom and my grandmother,
Okay.
and there were, and I think you and we discussed this briefly in like our chats when we were talking about doing this baking episode about the Five Roses cookbook, which is
Yes.
like a Canadian
Very
classic.
Canadian classic. It was in one of my culinary schools that I went to. Like we talked about that cookbook in our class.
And my mom, when she like grew up and left home, her mom like all like this is a little bit, you know, the time sign of the times. All the girls received a brand new copy of the Five Roses cookbook as they left home, like, you know, as they went to college or,
Yeah.
you know, moved away or whatever. And the boys didn't. But when my siblings and I started moving out of the house, then we each got a copy of the Five Roses cookbook. And my brother got one too, because of course my mom was like, well, you're going to need your fix. Like, how are you going to get your Five Roses food if you don't have the cookbook with you?
Exactly.
And it's kind of funny because it was like a classic when we were kids, um, and then they our cookbook was falling apart. It was used so much. And so I tried to find on Amazon like a new copy, and you couldn't find one. And so I emailed the company and I said, it's so sad that you can't get one of these books anymore, except for like, you know, a vintage copy.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we still produce them, but you have to send us a letter with a check in it, and then we'll mail it back to you. And I was like, I mean, I guess that's how they did it in the old days. I can't believe that's still what you have to do to get this cookbook. But we bought like a couple copies of them, and for like one for each of me and my siblings, and one for luck, I think, because it took like 8 weeks for them to send it back.
That is some old school style shit. I think that's crazy. That should be in like Amazon
It should be on Amazon,
or
but it's
eBay
not.
or something or somewhere of being like this, because that is a huge part of Canadian culture, is that cookbook, and the fact that you have to email the company to be like, hey, can I have a book? Like that's
Well,
just
like I had
so
to email
unwild.
them, and then they had to write them a physical letter.
Okay, what did you write in the letter? I'm curious.
I wrote like, you know, I contacted your thing, so and so, you know, human resources or whatever, like, or not human resources, I guess, like public relations,
Yeah.
told me that I had to send you a letter and I would like this many of them, and here is my check for exactly this much money, and here's my address. And it was, and then they like, you know, it took a while, but they did
Yeah.
come, and we were so excited. And it's really interesting because we have the one that my mom got from my grandmother. And then we have some from like a couple of friends who like weren't using theirs that they got from their parents when they left home
Yeah.
at different times. And so we have like a couple different editions.
Okay.
And every edition is slightly different. Like because I've read like I was like, okay, well, here's like their gingerbread recipe. Like, you know, what's
Yeah.
the difference between them? And like some of them were like, well, if eggs are too expensive right now, use this substitute. Oh,
Okay.
if like butter is too much, like, you know, try this instead. Like, you know, and they would do this interesting thing where they would have like a basic, like, here's your refrigerator cookie dough recipe. And then they would have like 12 different variations. You make the dough and then you put chocolate in it. You make the dough, you put nuts
Okay.
and and like butter pecan kind of flavor. You take the dough and you like, put cherries in it. And so they'll have like 12 different kinds of cookies with the same base that, and so
Okay.
they could print a lot of recipes in a small book,
Yes.
because it was like, okay, like here's seven different pancake recipes.
Mm-hmm.
The new version doesn't have that as much as it used to. Like, because they would have like charts for like, okay, you need to cook, a chicken this size for this long in this temperature oven, whatever, and then have a chart for if your chicken was a little bit bigger or your oven was a little bit hotter, or like, they even had in the pastry section, it was like, if your pastry is failing in this way, this is what you're doing wrong.
Oh
Like, if your
shit.
pastry is failing in that way, this is what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing wrong.
Okay.
Um, and it was like, that's like my mom knew, like, and she could make cookies. My mom can make a mean cookie. But when it comes to like pie or whatever, she kind of was like, oh yeah, I know how to make pie. I used to make it all the time. And then she tried making a pie and it failed. She was like, I don't understand. And so I went and I like read the pie section in that cookbook, and I was like, well, mom, it failed because this. And she's like, how do you know that? And I'm like, did you read the book? The
Yeah.
holy grail of Canadian baking. For it's like, really, it's very,
Mm-hmm.
white cookbook with lots of recipes that were compiled by white Canadians, I assume, that
Yes.
from other cultures they might not have had the exact same, you know here's how to make this
Yeah.
scone and this chocolate chip cookie, and like, it's very uh you
As I
know
say, British based, very
British
British,
based. Yeah.
very British. But see, that's interesting. So like it was talked about of like in our like culinary of like this is like a very iconic piece of stuff. And like there's a couple recipes. I think it was, do not quote me because I've done school. It's been a long time since I've been in school, but I think it was the cheese scones. We made that from
Oh
there.
yeah.
And I want to say it was some sort of tart.
Probably.
Probably it was in there, but I found that fascinating, and I think that's a really good, especially being at home, because you like when you go online and you like want to make something, you see the professional photo that goes with it, and you look at your product and you're like, mine doesn't look that way because it doesn't actually explain, oh, like if you were letting the yeast rise, yeah, you didn't activate the yeast for long enough, or you didn't put a sugar, you didn't put an active in there to make your yeast rise, or maybe your house is too humid, maybe it's not humid enough, maybe you have a hot spot in your oven, maybe you didn't let your yeast rise to the correct temperature. Like there's a lot of moving factors when it comes to baking, and I always found it fascinating in that cookbook that it's like, if this is how this turned out, this is X, Y, and Z. Instead of just Googling it now, and you could be like, why did my pastry fall? And it gives you like 15 things, but it doesn't narrow it down. It's like if I Google, I have a cough, I have cancer, right? So like
Yeah.
it was very nice that it'd be like, oh, okay, so my dough fell, so I didn't let it rise enough time, or I over mixed it. Those are your kind of like your options, right? So I very much do appreciate that. Now, out of that cookbook, what are your 3 favorite recipes to make?
I prepared.
Yes, you
I
did.
got a notebook full of notes of my favorite recipes.
Yes.
Um, I really like the carrot cake. The
Okay.
carrot cake is like delicious, and I tend to put like slivered almonds in,
Okay.
as well as like the carrots, and then it gives it like some texture, and it's just really good. And I like the pie dough,
The pie dough.
like,
Yep.
because and then they have like a million different, like, ways to use the pie dough,
Mm-hmm.
and even like you can take the pie dough and like and then make, a quiche or something, and that's not in the cookbook because again it's very British based,
Yeah.
but like, um it's a great fast dough that doesn't require a lot of lamination. It's like a rough
Yeah.
puff,
Yeah.
but with Crisco.
Okay. Yeah.
And so it's very easy to make and very quick, and it is really versatile, and there's no sugar in it. And so you can make a sweet pie with it because the filling will be sweet enough to, be fine, but you can make a savory dish with it too because there's no sugar.
Yeah, of course.
Um, and I really like the apple crisp, like the
Oh,
oatmeal crisp.
oh, that's definitely some Canadian British. That's like pure fall right there. Everybody has that. That's like my favorite fall dessert, minus the cinnamon aspects, because I have to make my own if I want it because this girl's allergic to cinnamon. But oh, getting those oats on top as it's baking with
Oh my
fresh
God.
Ontario apples. Oh my God.
Yes.
It's so good.
Oh my gosh. It's a really like, and that one's like most of the recipes in there are fairly, you know, foolproof.
Yes.
Like, you have to have some base knowledge. Any baking, you kind of have to have some base knowledge of like, okay, like if you're making a scone or a pie dough, you need your ingredients to be cold. But if you're
Yes.
making a cookie, then you need them to be room temperature, like that kind
Exactly.
of thing. But my very favorite recipe actually doesn't come from the Five Roses. My very favorite recipe came from this woman who would help out around my mom's house when she was a kid. Like
Okay.
she would come in for a couple afternoons a week and do like baking and stuff because they couldn't buy bread or whatever um, enough to feed their whole family. So they would bake it because it was cheaper.
Yeah.
And this lady, her name was Ivy, and her husband was actually a cabin boy during the Halifax explosion.
Oh shit. Okay.
And a beam in the boat that he was in fell and like gave him a permanent injury.
Yeah.
So he would work on the farm that my mom grew up on,
Oh,
and
okay.
this lady would come a couple afternoons a week and help with the weekly bake.
Okay.
And she made these cookies that now, like my mom and I, we love them so much that we have them every morning with our coffee. And we'll bake like a big batch of them and just freeze them and have
Yeah.
like a little bit out at a time. But they are a crinkle cookie with like the
Okay.
sugar like rolled in a ball with the sugar.
Okay.
And they're kind of like a molasses spice
Okay.
flavor.
Okay. That is definitely an East Coast bake, is a molasses cookie. I like the traditional molasses. It's like a Newfoundland recipe as well. Oh my, it's like a ginger molasses thicker cookie. It's gonna bug me now. I'll have to ask my mom tomorrow. I'm like, what the other molasses cookie
It
that we always
sounds
used?
it
It's
sounds like the same cookie, like
yeah,
the same general kind of cookie.
yeah, so good. You can't get
Like
shit like that here. There's like not
no,
Ontario. There's
well, you
nothing like it.
can if you bake it yourself.
If you bake it yourself, but you can't just go to like a
No,
specialty bakery and be like, I want a molasses cookie.
because people are going to be like molasses. The hell is that?
The fuck's molasses? And I know, and I see like I've picked up molasses before. Like, why do you need that? And I'm like, to bake, to
Because it's
because it
delicious. Like it
exactly.
by itself, it's not delicious, but
Oh
like
God, no.
it's anything delicious by itself.
See,
And it's full of iron.
I know. See,
So my mom's friend would make her kids eat liver if they had an iron low, and my mom would give us cookies.
yeah, molasses, because it's literally the same idea. I was an anemic child, so I always have struggled with being anemic. And that was something they said. It was like molasses is really good. So my mom would be like, here, eat some cookies. And I'd be like, okay. Because I fucking hate liver. I hate it's so gross. Liver's so gross.
Do you know what? This style of molasses cookie has been popping up as like a little 2 pack um, in Costco
Oh,
in Toronto.
interesting. Interesting.
So I think it's coming in from like Quebec.
Even more interesting. Okay.
Um, but my favorite kind of bread to make
Okay, what is it?
is molasses oatmeal bread.
Oh, okay. I like that you're
And
a sweet, sweet molasses girl.
I love molasses. Like, and like I love it in baked goods specifically.
Hmm.
Again, because nothing is delicious by itself in baking. But yeah, molasses oatmeal bread is chef's kiss delicious, which I learned when I went to university out in Nova Scotia.
Hmm.
And then I was like, well, I gotta find out how to make this myself at home. And I found a good recipe. And it's actually pretty easy.
Oh my God. I love that. Well, thank you for sharing. So it sounds like really similar, like when it comes to be a professional baker. I'll give you a little background. So, um, I didn't really bake a lot as a kid. My mom and my dad separated when I was really young. So my mom kind of got not the short end of the stick, but she definitely, my dad was always a little bit more well off than my mom because my mom didn't go to college. She kind of just didn't have enough money to go. So she was always kind of doing like temp jobs, whatever would pay the bills. But my dad was a salesman. So my dad always, rolled in the money. And then once they separated, my mom didn't really know what to do, and she didn't know how to bake. She didn't know how to bake, but my grandmother, my mom's mom, actually was a huge baker. And that was a huge thing my mom remembers. But my mom's mom died when my mom was 9.
That's so
So
sad.
she always kind of felt sad that like she never got the baking gene, but she said like it's really happy that it got passed down to me. It skipped a generation, but I've always had an interest in baking. I just didn't really know kind of how to start. Like I would help my mom bake and stuff, but like it would be pretty sporadic. And my dad, I'll be 30 by the time this comes out. I'll already be 30, and I have never once cooked for my dad because he doesn't want me to cook for him, which is really weird being a chef. But I mean, that's a whole conversation for a therapist and a different podcast. So I didn't really do anything. I helped them once in a while. It wasn't until I had a job at Dairy Queen. I was like early 20s, like not even 20s. I was like 19, 18, 19, 20 in that range. And I really enjoyed cake decorating. It was just another form of being creative. I've
Mhm.
always been a creative person, but this was just another form of being creative because at the time I was going to school to be a graphic designer and I hated it. Fucking hated it because I was just so bored. I'd be like, how many different types of fonts can I create? How many different images can I, change up? Like it just, to me, I always found there was an end point. But when I was cake decorating, there was never an end point. You could like the possibilities were endless. And I understand with graphic design, possibilities are endless. But to me, I found ends to them pretty quickly. So I went to, and then I fast passed my graphic design. Then I did culinary. I started cake decorating, and then got into pastry. I quickly got out of pastry to have my seal in fine dining because fine dining has more money than pastry. But let's be honest, kids, that's literally where the money's at. It's not in bread. It's in
It's
fine.
definitely not in bread.
It's in fine dining. So I went to Fanshawe at George Brown in Toronto and the Stratford Culinary Institute. So I did all 3 schools, and I did a co-op that required me to go to many different restaurants every day. So every day they'd send me somewhere else to learn your skill. The reason you have to do that is to get your seal, you have to work X amount of hours to be able to show that you're able to do these things. Like you can't just work at Special Life for 6 years and be like, I'm a chef. Like you have to go and do different technicians. Sorry, I work now with technicians, different chefs. Different chefs had to sign off on your skills. And I thought this is something I really wanted to do. I decided when I was done, that's actually not what I want to do, besides like work for me, because I'm a control freak. But when it comes to professional baking or industrial baking or commercial baking, they all have the same kind of thing. There's this big misconception, like when you watch a movie and they're like, oh, like, look, like I got to make this really fun recipe and this is like on the menu tonight. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Menus are designed months in advance, if not months in advance, at least a couple weeks. It depends on what type of restaurant. I've worked at restaurants where they come up with the menu on Sunday for the entire week. I've worked at restaurants where it's a month ahead, or it's 3 months ahead, or 6 months ahead. It's kind of really whatever the restaurant style was. But you weren't being creative. It actually sucked your soul of being creative because you were just making the same dishes consistently over and over. And just because I went to culinary school didn't mean that I got to skip being a line. I was always in line. Because that's how you have to start off. And if anything, it used to irritate me because I did the same thing when I stepped out of culinary school. I was like, I went to culinary school and you're gonna respect me. And they'd be like, get the fucking line. You haven't earned your spot. Like, figure your shit out and come talk to me after you've been doing this for 20 years. And it was just kind of like, but like they said in culinary school that like I was gonna be like the next like Gordon Ramsay. So like, what the fuck? But like that's not true. Like you have to work your way up to, and it's a huge respect to get to the top of the chain in the kitchen. But what I like, my time in professional baking was 18-hour days, making thousands and thousands of cookies and cupcakes and cakes that it kind of sucks the soul out of you. Like, especially when I worked at a cake bakery for like 2 weeks. Kind of as a temp, but just like I was trying to get my skill of buttercream. That was on my list of I had to achieve. And I figured if I worked at this place for 20 hours for 2 weeks every day, including Saturday, Sunday, I would be able to get what I needed to move on to the next part of my seal. Do you know how fucking soul sucking it is to just put white buttercream on thousands of cakes? I couldn't even actually decorate them. I just had to literally put it around and then have the cake decorator continue doing it. Like, it was fucking soul sucking. And that's a huge thing that people don't understand, that there's different types of cake decorating, that there's just here's the icing part, and then you have the actual decorators, and the actual decorators, very hard to come by, very niche position, and you make like 2 cents more than everybody else. And I'm talking, you're making 5 cents more in the minimum wage to begin with, and you're working these long days.
Like, and if you're in Toronto, like you can't survive on minimum wage.
No.
Like,
I was fortunate. My ex-boyfriend's sister lived right across the street from George Brown, like the downtown. Like, she lived like I took my fiance this past September to show him where I went to school and the St. Lawrence Market and stuff. And I was like, oh, I used to live in that building. And I was lucky because I didn't have to have 6 roommates to pay my bills, right? So I just kind of found it really soul sucking. And that's something that you'll notice when you start culinary school is you'll have your starting class of like 500-600 people, maybe 100 people will graduate. Like, I think that's pretty generous of saying 100. Not saying that professional baking isn't fun. I would say the bakers you work with is more fun than what you will be baking yourself. Again, you're working like long days, you're working with really big equipment as well. Like, it's not just like your little KitchenAid, like you're working with giant stand mixers, and professional ovens are different than home ovens. It's how I like to describe a highway car versus a city driving car. So a highway car is a fucking road beater. You drive that shit in the highway 401, 2.5 hours every day. It's going to have a different life than a car that goes stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. With a professional oven, it's the same kind of thing. It's usually 3 or 4 ovens stacked upon each other. Being a short person, I always struggled getting to the top oven. I usually had to do the middle or the bottom, but they are fucking hot because they never shut off until the end of the night, and they are continuously fucking running. There's no hot spots. There can't be, because I need to make sure that everything looks the same. And that's another thing that's soul sucking, is you have to follow the recipe to a T. You cannot ever deviate. When you're home baking, you can deviate. You're like, oh, I don't have enough eggs. Oh, like, no. If it's a professional bakery, say Sally comes in and gets her scone on every day, it needs to be consistent. And you can tell when the head baker or sous chef baker is out and you have your temp team in, because it tastes different, because they didn't follow the recipe. That is a huge thing in the bakery. You have to follow the recipe to the T. There is no shortcuts. And it's soul sucking, because you think like, oh, like I watched like all these cooking shows and I can be creative. There is no creativity when you are a professional baker and working for a retail or commercial built place. So it's not fun. It's not what you see on TV. And I actively discourage people from going to culinary school because it's a lot of money for a niche that you're not going to it's going to be really hard to get into, because everybody on Instagram is like, oh, I can work from home, which yes, you can. Here's the big problem with that. People will not pay the price of what you want to sell it for. I just did a bake sale a couple weeks ago we had like a community day garage sale, and I had a lot of old baking shit I needed to use up. I was like, okay, I'm going to sell some cupcakes. It's probably the only skill I have that someone will pay for at this point. And I had people like wanting like, oh, like, can I get your phone number? And I did. And the lady messaged me 2 days after and says, can you make my daughter's birthday cake? And I said, yep, I can. And she's like, okay. She's like, I want a pink dinosaur cake. And I said, okay, you need to be a lot more specific. How many people? What you're filling, how many flavors, is there allergies? That's like a big one, especially for home baking. Anybody listening to this, you have to say may contain peanuts, dairy, eggs. Even if it's not in there, there could be traces. And unless you have your kitchen professionally cleaned every single time, you have to indicate that there may be traces. So I was like, I can never guarantee peanut free. I can never. I'm not spending $100 to $200 to get my KitchenAid professionally cleaned to ensure, because my oven has peanut in it. I'd have to have my oven cleaned and all that good stuff. So she wanted to pay me $45 for a 2-tiered cake with fondant. And
I mean, I couldn't make a cake for $45, and I'm just like, me, it'd be like a sheet cake, like, homemade sheet cake, but it would be a sheet cake.
It'd be a sheet cake, right? And I was like, no, this is going to cost you about $300 plus fondant and time, because I don't have, so in professional baking places, especially if there's fondant, there's professional rollers. You've seen them on like Cake Boss and stuff. They fucking make the difference when it comes to rolling fondant. Okay, I don't know how many times I was dying. Also, some fondants are not kosher. Some are not. Some are. And if you have to make homemade fondant, that's even more trickier. So she was kosher. And I was like, okay. I was like, okay. So now we're even coming up to even more pressure. So I was like, I will give it to you for $250. And she said, I can see why you went out of business. Their prices are unrealistic. And I was like, I have to make homemade fondant from scratch. You gave me a specific, you can't just be like, I want a pink dinosaur. She gave me like a fuchsia. I can't just go, let's go to that fuchsia. Like, I have to physically use my color theory, which from my first diploma, because I have literally a diploma for colors. Like that's how cool that $10,000 piece of paper is. It just basically says that I know how colors work, but I have to physically make that color. Okay. That's going to take me a long time to be able to make that color. Then I have to make this cake. I have to decorate this cake, and you've given me 3 days. Like I work a full-time job. Like I can't do this. And then I was talking to somebody about, they're like, yeah, like they could have gone to like Cake Boss, or not Cake Boss, Chick Boss. I don't know if there is any in Toronto, but they're really popping up here as Chick Boss for cakes.
I don't think so.
In Ontario.
I don't think I've never heard of it. But
that's fair. So Chick Boss is basically like, if you want like a fun specialty cake, like you go to them, and they're about $65 to $100. And they're like, yeah, but Chick Boss is $65 to $100. I'm like, they're a professional bakery. This is what they do. For me to be able to make 1 2-tier, I have to buy all of the ingredients for one cake. If I was making, it's the same if I was making 3 cakes or 5 cakes. I would make more money at 5. I would charge less, but because it's a one-off, yeah, it's gonna cost me a lot. And that was a main reason I stopped baking from home, is because people thought I was fucking Tim Hortons. And you could just walk in and be like, okay, I want one lemon cupcake and one Oreo cupcake and one sprinkle cupcake. Like what people have to understand, that's one lemon base. So I have to make one lemon base, two vanilla. I just got so good to being like, you pick your base and then you decide filling and icing, because I got so tired of it. I want one raspberry, one strawberry, one blue. I'm like, so I have to
There's
take
things
away.
that industrial things can do that like home
Bakers
can't.
cannot, right?
Like
And
I like to knit and I would never sell knitting projects. Like I'll donate them,
yeah,
but I have to come in from the knowledge that like nobody wants to pay
mm-mm.
enough for this hat
No,
that it costs for the yarn.
no. And
Like
people want to charge me $1 per cupcake. $1. $1.
you can't get $1 per cupcake at like anywhere. I
Well,
don't care if it's like, Walmart.
right? Because the thing is at Sobeys, so it's 6 cupcakes for $4.99. So that works out to just about like 97 cents here for a cupcake. Yeah, but they were made 2000 at a time. They already made their profit.
Like a
Like,
long time ago, and then they froze them and shipped them.
exactly. Because I had a dream. I wanted to work at the cakery, which is in London. That is where all the cakes are made. Like any grocery store cake is made at this one place. And I thought this would be a really cool place to work and like learn how to make. No, it's all fucking done. You just kind of sit there and like take the pre stuff and just make sure that it's all like a slab. If it's a slab cake, it's a slab cake. Um, so I didn't really have like the best experience when it came to being on the professional side in places. I was always such a liability as well because I had so many allergies that like if it was pumpkin season, like I couldn't make any of the pumpkin stuff. So I kind of just basically I was unhireable, but I knew that going into it because I wanted to work for myself. But again, I didn't realize it was like 16 hours, like 16-hour days. Like my feet would hurt, my back would hurt. You have to start at like 4 a.m. And I would tell people because bread class was at 2 a.m. because you had to have 2 a.m. was bread class because you had to literally make everything, have it out for 7 a.m. because we would also sell it at school. So that's a thing. That was something they wanted to teach you. If you're a breakfast place and you have fresh bread, you have to start being at work at 2 a.m. So fresh bread is ready by 6 a.m. for people heading off to work. And that scared people away. And I remember working 2 a.m. to 8 p.m. That was a very
Oh
common
Jesus,
shift.
that's
Long, right?
that's way like because then like how long have you got before you're back at work? Like 2 hours? Like
6 hours. I had friends that were chefs that actually just used to just live in the restaurant. They'd have a cot and they'd sleep all the time. That's a huge thing,
geez. Like
right?
it's kind of like I remember when I was in high school, I needed to get a part-time job. So I
Yeah.
decided I love to swim. I'll be a lifeguard. Never enjoyed swimming again.
No, it
Like,
takes the joy out of it. Like if you like to hobby bake, stick with hobby baking. Make that your hobby. Do not make it a career. You are not going to open up that cute bakery. Maybe you will one day, but what people don't understand is, yeah, like say like my baking company is LR Cupcakes. That's my Ontario registered business name. I have to have a financial backer if I ever want to do anything. And most restaurants have 3, 4, 5 silent partners, and they know nothing about the food industry. They just want paychecks. So then you're putting pressure on someone who doesn't know the food industry, and they don't understand of like what it's like to not make a profit. Because that's very common as well. You don't make profit. You don't like if you want to open a restaurant, you don't make profit. And it was funny that it was talked about on Vanderpump Rules that like for Tom Tom's the first year they made profit, and Lisa's like that never happens. It usually takes 5 years to make profit. That's a well-established restaurant, takes 5 years profit. Normal bakeries, 10-year profit, maybe. At the 10-year mark, you might start being in the green every year. And that's why
Not to
bakeries
mention the debt,
and the
like that you
debt
would have
that
accumulated.
exactly. And then front of house staff, back of house staff. Okay. Are they sick? Are they reliable? That was a huge thing. Like we were talking about before this is I used to work long days because what if someone prep called in sick? We can't, we're not going to prep our meat. We're not going to prep our vegetables for the Saturday rush. No. And there's no one else to cover you. Like your shifts literally say 3 a.m. to done. Done could mean anything. Done could mean 11 a.m. Done could mean 4 p.m. I once worked a shift from 4 in the morning to 10 p.m. at night. And I had to be back at 4 a.m. the next day to keep working, to not complain, to not be like, to not say anything, to make, at the time, I think minimum wage was like $11. I think I made $11.10 an hour. And there's no lunch breaks. There's no breaks. You keep going until you're done. And then you collapse. So that's like a main thing is I never thought I was going to have a husband. I didn't think I was going to have kids. I thought I was going to be married to my job. But when I met my fiance and then I'm like, I want to see him and I want to be with him, and I can't have a restaurant and a partner. I can't do it.
Like I know the longest shifts I ever worked was like in a very different section of the food industry. I worked like as I said, my mom grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
And I have she has 6 siblings and 5 of them became farmers.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of my uncles is a vegetable grower. And so for summer jobs in university, I would work at the vegetable farm, kind of like running the warehouse section with all the coolers. And, you know, it was so funny because a lot of people in the food industry are not knowledgeable about what actually goes into any aspect of it.
Yes.
Like they'll be like, okay, we're having a sale on asparagus. We need like 1,000 cases of asparagus.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, well, we have 0 cases of asparagus. They're like, what are you talking about? It's asparagus season. It's like, has it been raining for the last 3 weeks?
Exactly.
Yes, it has. No asparagus. Like,
mm-hmm. People think food comes from the grocery store. They don't realize what actually goes into food. And that's something that it's a huge irritation for me as being a chef, you have no idea how much. So say it's like a steak at Sobeys, great example. It's now a $25 steak on sale for $15 and people are passing it up. I'm like, do you know how much water, how much grain, how much time went into making this tiniest little steak, and you're not going to get it because tiny little brown spot on there? Get the fuck out of here. It's going to taste great. It's just people get a little, oh, but it's not perfect. It's like the perfect apple theory or the perfect pepper theory. I'm not going to buy this pepper because it's not the shape of a pepper. Who gives a fuck? It is full of GMOs. It's not the actual shape the food was originally intended to be on. That's how we modified it so we can make it as big as possible. If you ever want to like freak out your minds, everybody, Google what food actually used to look like before preservatives. It would fucking blow your mind. Or food science of mixing different genes together to make stuff. Holy shit. So
like personally, I'm not like so concerned about like GMOs or whatever, because I'm like, you know what, people have been eating like whatever they could get their hands on since like the dawn of time. And yeah, it might not be great for you, but like it's partially what we've over like the span of thousands and thousands of years, like people are like, oh, is this good to eat? Well, so and so died eating it, so maybe don't eat that.
See,
and
no, go ahead.
And but like again, like people don't understand what goes into food because a lot of my relatives are in dairy farming.
Yes.
And people don't understand like the level of people are like, well, why is the stuff that's grown in Canada or made in Canada or like Canadian milk is really expensive compared to milk in other places? For one thing, we have long winters.
Yeah,
That affects the crops.
absolutely.
It affects the crops, and the cows and everything. But the other thing is that we have like really super high standards.
Yes.
And like to keep those high standards, like I had to like write notes on like every skid of lettuce that came into our warehouse. Like I had to like keep documentation, and like if it had gone bad, then they'd be able to trace it back so close, and like they
Yep,
would come in for random inspections all the time.
absolutely.
And like same thing with like the milk. And people are like, well, why is it so expensive? And it's like, do you realize that owning a farm is a very precarious business to be in? Like
Yes.
it's super expensive, it's so time consuming, and like, you know, it's so up to like people who don't understand. Like
Exactly.
consumers don't understand. The people
No.
ordering the groceries on like for the grocery stores don't understand. Like the
No.
people running the grocery stores don't understand. Like,
No.
it just people don't understand.
They don't. And I think a big thing is like throughout the pandemic, like things are expensive. Like you say, okay, so say like your carton, like you buy the physical carton, not the milk, but the carton that it goes in has now gone up, say 200%. Maybe it
Yeah.
used to cost you $2, $1.50. Now it's costing you $1.50. So you have to then mark your stuff up to go to match it. My girlfriend Rachel is a dairy farmer, a Windsor dairy farmer. They family sold the farm. She's moved up to Peterborough and now has her own farm. Also, love you, Rachel. I know you listen to these podcasts. Love you. And like I would talk to her dad all the time of like what it's like to be a dairy farmer and the misconceptions that comes with being farming of basically, oh, like it's fine, like look, we got strawberries. Like I've seen her crops.
Strawberries suck. I hate strawberries.
Okay,
Like I love to consume strawberries, but when I was working on the farm and we were growing
yeah,
strawberries, like strawberries are a nightmare.
yeah. But the thing is consumers don't know that. Consumers don't know what goes into planting a one strawberry seed, how much work, how much effort, and the standards that shit has to go through, especially for pesticides and making sure that shit doesn't eat your stuff. Imagine like having the best Ontario corn to then have an animal destroy it and you can't sell it. Or it's a dry, please correct me if I don't know if it's either dry or wet when it comes to corn that you want, but whatever the opposite one that you want. Well, we had a dry or wet summer, so no, there's barely any corn, right? And you're
Yeah, I
like,
think I think either can be it has to be just right. It has to
right?
be just right,
It has to be just right. But that even we're even talking about soil at that point. Where's the sun? Where's the soil? What type of soil is it? She'll go into full detail about it, and
Or
I'll be
like the
like,
crops being rotated properly, like,
yep. Or I think it's the Three Sisters. So it's the corn,
the corn, squash, and
squash,
beans, I think.
beans. Yeah, it an ancient native practice of making sure that they all form with each other because one protects the other, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't know that. They're like, oh, cool, it's carrots, awesome. Why is my bag of carrots now $6? That's like because the farmer.
Why? Do you know what I find really funny is like
Lay it
people
on
would be
me.
like, why does this potato have dirt on it? I mean, I'm sorry, but this potato is dirty, and it's like, do you realize their roots?
Yeah.
Of
Do you
course, it's
realize
got dirt on it.
you had to fucking plant them to like? That's why we wash our vegetables, kids. But like a big thing is like obviously foodborne illnesses, especially salmonella and lettuce. That is huge. And I've had people be like, well, salmonella comes from chicken. So how does lettuce get it? And you're like, how do you think it's being fucking packaged and sorted, my friend? It's going to like a Grand River Foods or a distribution center. It's all being packaged together. All you
Not only
have is
that, but like if you're fertilizing your soil, a lot of that is poop.
yeah,
This kind of poop, that kind of poop, cow poop, chicken poop, whatever, it's poop. Like,
yeah. Exactly. And they're like, oh, but like, I don't understand. Or like another really big misconception is most people associate getting food poisoning from going out to eat. Most food poisoning actually comes from your home because your cutting board's not cleaned correctly. Because what kills me is using the same cutting board to eat for vegetables, fish, and chicken, and the same knives for all three. Oh my God. Like I have frying pans that just say beef, frying pans that just says chicken, knife that says chicken. I keep it all together. That is something that you will learn in culinary school to help stop cross contamination, because
Mhm.
that's a huge problem. And home baking could happen, professional baking that could shut your place down like that.
Yeah.
Like it is bred into you to never cross contaminate ever. And no licking your fingers, even though it's so easy to do if you're hungry because you've worked 12 hours and you've not eaten and you're like, no one's gonna notice. No, that is
Let me just eat
how.
this cookie, and then it's like it's over. You ate it over a bowl of batter or something, and then the batter's ruined or whatever.
Exactly, right? So it's just like, oh, there's a lot that goes into it, but I will say if I have to pick one baking story. I worked at it's a good baking story. I worked at, where was I? I think it was Starlight or Star Sprinkle. It was in Toronto. It's long gone now. It was just like a little pop-up place. And I was making like basically cookies. And this little girl came up and she's like, because like she's like, oh, can I get a cookie? I was like, yeah, for sure. And she's like, oh, like, did you make these? I said, I did. I did making. I'm just about to, leave for the day. And she's like, can you put a smile on my cookie? And I was like,
Oh,
of course. So I walk back and I put a little smiley face on the cookie and I give it to her. And she's like, thank you. And just ate it. And to her, that meant nothing. It meant nothing to her. She's just like, this random lady put a smile on my cookie. But to me, it was just, I got to make this product. They don't know it's me making it. I'm just happy to be the one restocking the shelves. So the little girl, I was like, can I have a smile on my cookie? And I'm like, absolutely. There you go.
so
It's
nice.
it's just those like little interactions to me really made cooking fun, or just having a good batch of cupcakes, or having a good, or making like a specialty order for like, I had a woman who was trying to get pregnant for 10 years, finally got pregnant, and then she was doing a baby shower and she was crying her eyes out as I was taking her order because she finally got this. So food is very emotional. Food connects us all. So it sometimes I would always just think about, what am I making? What is this occasion for? Especially if it's like for like a 95th birthday or a first birthday. Like to me, that's how I remember birthdays sometimes by cakes. I mean, just being a baker, right? But you'd be like, oh my God, like this cake is so good, or this is so cool. Like, look at that. Like it's fun, right? I would think out of the shitty years I had in culinary school and the shitty years I did baking, it's the little milestone moments when I would talk to somebody, or they'd send me an email or be like, oh, thank you so much to the baking staff this weekend. Like they did a really good job with this cake, or thank you so much for making a specialty cake for me, or just something on the lines of that. Like that is what I love to hear, is the positive feedback. Like for the bake sale that I did, I sold out cupcakes pretty quickly. I was like walking to the bus station because I was like heading to London, and the guy stops me. Like he's like running his tracks. And I was like, "Hi, sir. Like, are you okay?" He's like, she's like, I just want to tell you, you made the best cupcakes I've ever had in my life. Like, thank you. I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's just kind of like feeling appreciated, of being like, I got to bring joy to someone's day, not even thinking that I brought them joy, because I've made like 600-700 cupcakes today, but to them that's for an occasion or a celebration or
Mhm.
something like that. So I would say, to me, that is the side of cooking that is the best part of cooking, in my personal opinion, is the thank yous and the appreciation part.
Mhm.
Everything else sucks.
Oh my gosh. It's like, I don't know. I kind of look at like, because now that I haven't worked for a while,
Yeah.
and in some ways, like it sucks that I can't work, but
Yeah.
in some ways I have to look at it like I don't have to work
Yeah.
because I can't. So, and now I look at any job and mom's like, wouldn't that job be fun? And I'm like, no job's fun.
No job is fun.
No job is fun. Like,
No. I've never had a super fun job. Maybe being Stassi. Maybe Stassi's more fun, but it's not like a full-time job, especially not right now.
well, and I
Um,
think if it was your full-time job, it wouldn't be fun.
no, because I would be like always pushing out content more than I am doing right now, or always trying to push boundaries and all that good stuff. I mean, do I hope to make this my full-time job one day? Fuck yeah, I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't. But I just want to do something that I enjoy. Like the job I currently have, it pays the bills, says the least. Learning a lot. I mean, if they fire me at the end of the year, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if they fired me in 2 weeks because I'm it's a job I'm not used to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, jobs are awful. But and some people like their job. And if you're listening to this and you like a job, you're doing it right. But for the rest of us, I feel like we take whatever job we can get because we have to pay the bills, but we don't actually get to do what we like. Because I used to
Mm-hmm.
think icing 600 cupcakes a day would bring me joy. That didn't bring me joy. And then I thought working in a fine dining restaurants, well, that's going to bring me joy. That fucking definitely didn't bring me joy. Or I'm going to go do X, Y, and Z. That that didn't bring me joy either, right? So it's just trying to find happiness when you get older. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Well, and like the sometimes the hard thing is that you bake a whole pile of cookies and then you're like, I know how to find happiness. I'm gonna eat all the cookies.
Right? But then like, the older you get, like the more weight you gain that comes with it. That's why I stopped baking. When I was in culinary school, you have to eat everything you make. Like literally on my personal Instagram, not my Stassi, my real Instagram page, the tagline is do not trust a skinny chef. Do
Mm.
not trust them. They do not eat their food. I used to cook everything in butter because that is what culinary school 101. Butter is in every dish ever go. So I cooked everything in butter. I fried everything because that's what they teach you. And you get really fat or high cholesterol of being like, I'm just gonna eat butter every day. Um,
And it's expensive. Like, I mean, like I understand that, dairy farmer family, like, yeah, I understand that it's expensive to produce,
yes.
but it is expensive to eat.
Oh my God. I literally had to go buy butter a couple weeks ago. Walmart. $9. $9 for butter. I was like, get the fuck out of here. If that was Sobeys or a specialty store, yeah, I'll pay the $9. But not Walmart, who crushes their competitor, crushes anybody to the point of them not making money to sell a product. So
Mm-hmm.
no, no,
Yeah,
no,
it
no, no.
sucks.
I agree. You know what doesn't suck though? Home baking.
Home
Because
baking is fabulous.
home baking is the way to go. If you like baking, you do not have to go to culinary school to have a career. There's lots of people I know who are more successful than I will fucking ever be when it comes to baking, and they are self-taught. And that is something that I like about cooking and baking is you don't have to go to the best of the best. And you don't have to go to Cordon Bleu in Paris, and you don't have to work under the best chefs. Some people are just naturally born with cooking, and some people it just doesn't come naturally to them, and that's okay in either direction. But I think when it comes to cooking and baking, it's you learn what you want to learn. Not everybody's going to be the next, top chef out there, and not everybody's going to go on a reality show, but of what it's like to be a chef or black box challenges,
Mm-hmm.
which I've done my fair share of black box challenges because that's literally what culinary exams are at the end is black box challenges because that's fun.
So I have to ask you
Yes,
something.
sure, lay it on me.
For home cooks, like, do you have any like tips and tricks that you would want to share?
Oh, yep, I was like, I wonder if you were gonna ask me that. Because I was gonna wonder if Alicia tomorrow was gonna ask me the same question when it comes to food industry. Also, that podcast will be out in a couple weeks or next week, so listen to the food industry one. Yeah. So I would say tips and tricks is you don't have to go out and buy the most expenses of things. Just kind of look at brands to see like have the best thing you can own is a good frying pan, a good knife set, a nice cutting board. Like, you don't have to be like, oh, I'm going to go buy the $500 frying pan. No, it's just a name. Honestly, I'm a Tefal girl and a rock girl. I love the rock everything. If you're in Canada, Crappy Tire puts them on sale, 30-35 bucks for a nice frying pan. To me, I have like seven or eight different frying pans that I just love. Something as well is learn cooking temperatures when it comes to food. Learn what a fully cooked chicken breast is. Learn, like, have a meat thermometer. I always have a meat thermometer in my pocket. I don't serve anything without a meat thermometer. I want to double check. Don't over season your food. Honestly, all you need is salt and pepper. If you're doing it right, you just need salt and pepper. What else can I offer? Oh, when you're making bread, do not over whip it with your KitchenAid. Kind of gauge it and see how it goes, and always add sugar. And I add maple syrup because I can't add honey because I'm allergic to honey. But 2 teaspoons of sugar and a teaspoon of maple syrup will really activate your yeast and kind of just make your bread a little bit better. And also, if you're making bread, like, don't load it up with a bunch of shit. Just have a classic dough. And if you want to start making bread, do not start with fucking sourdough. Start small. Make your yeasty peasant bread. I just taught my fiance how to make a peasant bread. And he's like, this is easy. I'm like, yeah, because you work your way up to it. I can give a lot more examples about cupcakes because I've made like 10,000 cupcakes. No, that's a lie. I've made way more than 10,000 cupcakes in my career, probably.
You know what's funny is I hate making cupcakes.
I love making
cupcakes. I would rather make a sheet cake or something, but I have my hands are not very steady. And so when I make cupcakes, I get batter all over the place, then you have to wipe it up and it never wipes fully and it burns. And
sorry, I can't stand sheet cakes. They're like my fucking death to bear. So cupcakes, I'm gonna give you some tricks of the trade, everybody. So write this down, save the sound bit to everybody. I've made a lot of cupcakes in my career. This is the secret to how my cupcakes last for 7 days. Fresh. 7 days. You couldn't, if I gave you a cupcake on the 7th day, you wouldn't know it was the 7th day. Tin foil is your best friend. So I use the tin foil cupcake holders. They're expensive. Wilton carries them, and also Reynolds. They come in 36, like a pack of 36, running anywhere from $3.50 to $4. That is your best friend. Why? Keeps the moisture and oil in, because if you use paper, it leaks out. Also, tin foil cooking trays. Here's the reason I cook with tin foil and tin foil. What a lot of people don't know when you bake cupcakes is, or bake anything in a metal tray, it continues to cook afterwards. But tin foil loses its heat in about 80 seconds after coming out of it. So it's no longer extra cooking, which takes the moisture out. So I cook tin foil with tin foil. It will keep the moisture locked in and doesn't continue to overbake having the cupcakes come out. That is my best advice I can tell anybody who's baking. People know me as the fun liner lady because I always have the fun liners. Because you can actually also see the liners because the oil and the butter and the eggs have not seeped through. So that's my best advice. Silicone icing bags are your best friend. I've had the same set since I started culinary school. They have lasted me 12 years. They are absolutely amazing. I have different sizes, and everyone knows it's my piping bags. They're very easy to clean, very easy to handle, especially if you have a handle on the top. I have smaller ones because I have smaller hands, and that's something as well. If you have bigger hands, like you'll learn how to, I don't know, I can't even say but like baking and stuff, like having it down, it comes down to a science. I know it says to always hold your icing bag on a 75-degree angle when you're like icing. You can do like a 90 or like a 95-degree angle. It really just depends on like what you're comfortable with. So I usually pipe with my right hand to holding my left. A lot of people use their left to their right. Depends what hand you are, if you're dominant. And what else can I give? Less is more when it comes to cupcakes. Like, don't go crazy with like fun fillings and shit. Like, it's like, don't do it, especially food coloring. Be very cautious, especially with using red food coloring in cakes. It leaves a really disgusting bitter taste to it and also makes the cake expire faster. So be mindful of that, especially the Wilton red. It will make your cake expire 1 or 2 days earlier. I can't tell you why. I don't know what it is, but there's something about the Wilton red food coloring just destroys it. Just trying to think of like anything else I can give. And experiment. I love to experiment with flavors. I'm really into food science right now, so I like to push the boundaries of, I don't have any lemons, but how can I make this taste acidic? Or what if I mixed coconut and almond and strawberry and blueberry? Like, how would that taste? And all that good stuff, and trying to continuously keep evolving and changing up food and making really fun flavors. At this point, I am known for my cupcake liners and my flavors. People go crazy for flavors. So, and also know, if you're starting to bake, not everybody's a cake decorator, not everybody's a baker. You're kind of really one or the other. And don't feel sad if you're just not a baker. That's okay.
I find cooking and baking is like, some people are like really great at cooking because it's more art. Like, I consider it more artsy because it's less of a science.
Yes.
Less of a, you must do exactly this, otherwise your bake will not turn out.
Exactly.
If you're cooking, and vice versa. Like if you're more of a baking person, then people are like, well, your stuff isn't flavorful or fun cooking because you just follow the recipe exactly.
Exactly. So it's just kind of like finding what works well for you. And then also, my final advice is, if you're starting to do cake decorating, do not get discouraged in the first year that your cakes don't look like they do on Instagram. Those are very heavily edited photos. And that's could also not be the first time they've made that cake. And that's something I want to stress is, it's kind of like The Sims. We show you what you want to see. Yes, I'd look at this beautiful this beautiful cupcake or this beautiful cake. That could have been the third or fourth cake we've made that day. It's not always the first time. And as a chef, I make cooking mistakes all the time. I will curdle cream. I just curdled cream 2 weeks ago when I was making homemade Alfredo sauce. I was fucking pissed because I wasn't paying attention, right? You got busy. Shit happens. Mistakes happen. But you have to keep pushing through and just start small. I was just picking my nose. I was like, oh fuck, my cream curdled. But that happens. You're like, okay, I'm not going to let this happen again. And take every food mistake you have as an experience of being, okay, so this didn't work out because, taking it all the way back to our cooking book, well, maybe my cake didn't rise enough because I didn't put enough baking soda in. I literally talked on the podcast with Go Debug Yourself that one of the first cakes I ever made exploded because I had too much baking soda. Too much baking soda and oil, baby. That's what it does. It explodes.
Oh my gosh, I'm in retrospect, it's a funny story, but I'm sure in the day of it was like, oh man.
Oh fuck yeah.
You were probably looking forward, some cake, and then
oh yeah, I had my brother-in-law's cake I made from this year exploded as well because I had over mixed it too much. There were too many air bubbles. Oh, final thing, get your air bubbles out of your cake. Literally take your cake pan or whatever it is and fucking smash it on the counter, and you will see the air bubbles rise. less air bubbles in cake. Some people don't do that. And I was like, that makes sense. But
One
anyways,
thing
yeah.
like I find like temperatures makes a big difference. Like when I
100%.
make cookies,
Yep.
I'll refrigerate the dough overnight.
Yes. And
Like,
you have it that comes with time. Also, knowing if you're a home baker where your hot spots in your oven are. That's very important. And if you don't know how to do it, I take 4 glasses of water in a heat safe container or whatever, put them in the 4 corners of your oven, put the oven on 375 for 20 minutes. After, take it out, see what's actually 375. That will tell you where your hot spots are in your oven. Every home oven has a hot spot. I don't care if you have a $20,000 oven, one part of your oven will always be hotter than the other. That's just how ovens are made, especially home ovens versus commercial ovens. So I know, or I also know that my 375 on my oven is actually true 335. So I know if I want to, if I need to bake something or cook something, I need to gauge accordingly. Don't always just go by a 425 or a 325 or a 350. Know your oven to ensure how hot your oven truly is. Because if there's something might not be coming out correctly, it could be your oven is too hot or too cold and you just don't know. So I hope that wasn't a verbal diarrhea for everybody to like listen. But no one ever asks me for cooking tips anymore. No one ever does. My fiance does once in a while, but like no one's just like, hey John, like talk to me about baking. And I'm like, okay, take a seat, lads. I have horror stories for days. I almost failed out of culinary school because I couldn't make macarons. I think
oh
that's
my
that
God. See, that's one thing.
correctly.
That's one tip I have from home bakers to home bakers is like there are some things that it's not worth learning how to make.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? Like if you have like a bakery where you can go and get
Mhm.
like close to my house in Toronto, we have this really schmancy French bakery.
Yeah.
And we're always like, and people are like, well, why would you spend that much money on something? And it's like, because if you want that specific thing,
Yeah.
you need to get it there. If you want a croissant, go to a French bakery
Yeah.
and spend your $5 or something on the one croissant and enjoy it.
Yep.
And then like not get another one for a year or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you don't have money to spend on croissants, but don't go to Costco and
Nope.
get like the big thing of like 20, like they're not the same thing.
That's not a
Like,
French croissant. That is a mass-produced croissant made at a factory. I think it's fuck. It's not Milton.
like
It's
Weston or something
yeah.
bakeries
Yeah,
or
West End. Yeah. It's literally it's made there and it's like distributed out. That's not a
yeah,
French pastry.
no, like or like you get these like you can buy like macarons at like Costco. Like don't buy them. They're
No.
not real. They're not
No.
this real thing. And even if you have like a French chef make you a macaron, you have to eat it like within half an hour. Because
Yes.
if you let it sit for longer than that, then it's destroyed.
Yep. Well, that was the whole thing when I was like making them. I was like, oh my God. It took me 12 tries to finally pass my macarons. And my teacher, he knew me like we were friends. And I think he just passed me because he felt really bad. But my first one's exploded. My second one's burnt. They would fall flat or too thick. Like there was just I couldn't get the right consistency. It's a very hard thing to make and it looks really easy online. But there are ones online that are not actually macarons and that bothers me. They just look like macarons, but they're not
Yeah. Oh,
macarons.
I imagine because like it's like an entirely different kind of flour and it's so expensive. Like
Mm-hmm.
the ingredients for it and stuff. And I'm just like, you know what? I it's not worth it.
Nope.
It's like a steak. I don't know how to cook steak. So if I'm going to eat a steak, I should go get a steak at a restaurant
Okay, baby
because I
girl.
would destroy a I would
I
destroy a shake
A
steak.
steak is my like I specifically when I got to fine dining was meat. I can teach you how to make the best steak. And all it is a top sirloin, enough butter to kill your like to die of a heart attack, salt and pepper. That's the only things you need. And I have it down to a science on how to cook it properly. I will teach you one day. Like people will
Sounds
ask
fun.
me, to make steak for them. When like people will bring their steaks to me when they come to my house, so I will make steak for them. And it comes out perfectly every time. There's just something about steaks and meat that I can get to the point. It's like we like sheet cakes. You're like, I got this. And I'm like, fucking sheet cake.
Well, and it's like even like stuff that you cook more often. Like I make the molasses cookies. We call them Ivy cookies because
Yeah.
that was the lady who made them.
Okay.
So the Ivy cookies, I make them regularly because we eat them every day.
Yes.
With our coffee in the morning. And like, you know, people say, oh, never get a piece of equipment in your kitchen that you can only use for one thing. And it's like, if you're going to be using it often,
Yeah.
get the thing that only does one thing. Like, you know, the cookie scoop that
Yes.
measures the exact amount of cookie dough, or like, you know, the pastry blender that it only blends pastry, but like otherwise there's like, it's the only thing that does what it is. Like other than cutting it with two knives, but that doesn't really work.
Exactly. And invest. Like I've had, which my KitchenAid, I got the professional one. Used to be able to get my Costco. You can't get them anymore. I think it's like the 8,000. I know it's a six. I know there's a 6,000. It's an 8,000. It's a little bit more on the industrial side. I use that shit for everything. Fucking everything. Mashed potatoes go in there because I'm too goddamn lazy to mash my own potatoes now. But I like
make everything by hand. I mix it all by hand.
Fuck that. Fuck everything about. Well, that's a home cell versus professional. I just throw shit in a mixer, and I'm like, I have 20 other things I gotta do.
Well, I think part of it is that like I make big batches and freeze them, and like the only mixer I've ever had the opportunity to use is like the basic, you know, my first KitchenAid or whatever that my sister owns.
Yeah.
And like, you know, it's like the Easy Bake Oven, the Easy Bake KitchenAid. And it is a KitchenAid, but like, and so the bowl is so small that I can't make double batches of anything. And so I'm just like, I'd rather mix it by hand because it's such a pain in the ass to make like one batch at a time.
Okay, I want to confirm. When you say mixing by hand, are you talking a hand mixer? Or are you talking fucking literally with your hand?
Like if I'm making like a cake or something, then I'll use a hand mixer.
Okay.
But if I'm making cookies or something like that, or scones, I'll mix by hand.
Okay, you have to
like
come to
a wooden stick.
You have to come to my house now. Enjoy kit because I can do 36 cookies I can make in kit, no problem. Because it's a big bowl, right? And I'm like, oh, mashed potatoes go in there. Oh, I like to pull my pork in there too.
Oh, that would be delicious.
Yeah, all I do is instead of the whip, because I whip everything because I like whip food, it's just the cake batter one. You throw it in there with your pork somewhat cooked, throw it in there, you're good to go. Does all the shredding for me, and I'm continuing on doing other things. That is something
and it's so personal. Like you have to experiment with different things because it's like, you know, this works for one person, but it definitely doesn't work for another person.
Hey, I'm in awe of you of doing shit by hand, my friend. I'm too goddamn lazy to do shit by hand. I made bread. So, fun story. After I got my appendix out in December, I was watching Yellowstone because what else do you do besides literally fall in love with Beth and Rip? But my mom wanted me to eat bread. And the doctor specifically told me to stay away from carbs for a couple days because I couldn't get bloated because that could affect the stitches that were where my appendix once was and the stitches on my ovaries where the giant cyst was. So I was like, oh, fuck it. I was like, Mom, I don't eat bread. Guess what? I had to make bread because I was like starving. But I didn't want my fiance to know I was making bread. I mean, I eventually told him because he fucking found the bread. But I did it by hand, and that was the first time I'd like made bread by hand, probably since first year of culinary. And I was like, oh my God. I'm just fucking sitting there, my hands trying to like get everything. And that is, I wish I could have more patience for that. I'm just so lazy now that I like to have things do things for me. I'm sure we've all seen the BuzzFeed articles of being like, oh, like this is a electric carrot peeler versus here's a hand one. I'm electric, do everything for me type of girl because I want to focus on either making a nice homemade sauce or doing something like that. because I don't have a team behind me of doing stuff. This is a one-woman show. And if a machine can do something for me, I'm gonna take it. But I bow to you, my friend, of
Well, I
doing
think part
shit
of
by
it is that I
hand.
have free time.
That's
I
fair.
have a lot of free time.
Yes.
Um, and and yeah. And so if you have like a lot of free time and you're just enjoying the process of it, or I find like I get a better texture because I'm not as an expert at like making sure that the texture of the dough is correct or whatever, that it's fully mixed or whatever, if I don't have it like, you know, in my hands working it. But and I think another thing is that you talk about how you're like a less tall, like,
Yeah.
you know, or like not as tall as average. I'm like 6 feet tall.
You're 6 feet tall?
And I'm the short sibling. My sister is 6'4".
Girl, I thought you were like my height.
No, my family's Dutch. Like we're all tall. My dad was 6'6". Like,
Oh my God. Oh my God. So like you actually have to like crouch down to do things then to get to.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Or
I'm like height of everything.
like if I like so if I like well like so if I'm like, you know, kneading bread dough or something, I'm just like leaning my weight into it on top of our extra tall counter, like as opposed to like, so I think that like makes a difference too. Like,
Yeah, you actually have fucking body strength that you can do that shit. I
well, I
can't
used to
even.
be a massage therapist. Like it's all about like, because people think, oh, like massage therapy, you have to be really strong. You're like, no, you just have to lean on the person.
Yeah, you just have to be able to put the pressure where the pressures need to be needed or lean in some. Oh my God. Girl, this is like our third podcast. I swear, I thought, I'm like, if you would have given me $1 million, I would have guessed 5'1" or 5'2".
No, no, I'm like 6. Like I'm like a little shy of 6, but like almost 6. And
You're
that's why
literally a foot taller than me. Literally.
like I have my sister has like my brother's having no kids, I'm having no kids. My sister has the only kids, that it's me and my brother and my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And she's 6'4", her husband is also 6'4". Their kids are like, they're wearing like 5-year-old clothes,
Yeah,
like for like 5-year-old kids. The oldest is 2
because that's how big they are.
and the youngest is 1, and they're both wearing the same size 5-year-old clothes.
Sorry. That didn't though that was not dead air, guys. Like that is holy shit.
Which is like, it's a big, it's a, you know, it's a little bit of a pain
Mm-hmm.
because like most clothes made for like 1 and 2-year-olds have like the snaps between the legs,
Yes.
so that if you pick them up, then their shirt doesn't come rolling up to their armpits.
Yes.
But they don't make those in 5-year-old size for some reason,
They
even
do
though
not.
the 1-year-old still would need that.
Oh my God. That's crazy. Holy shit.
It's just like, you know, and to me that's like so, you know, normal
Yeah.
that everybody in my family's taller than me. I'm the shorty pants. Like, and then like I meet someone who is more like, close to like Canadian average size, and I'm just like, oh, the, you know, you must have a different literal perspective of like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like you don't have family members ducking through door frames.
No. Actually, if anything, I'm actually one of the tallest women in my family.
Wow.
That's how tall, like, because I stand above a lot of my family. And it's weird when I have like, I'm very short. Like my fiance is like 5'8". I'd say 5'7", 5'8". To me, he's super tall because
Mm-hmm.
he's 7 inches taller than me. He's taller than my dad. My dad's only 5'6". And my mom is like under 5 foot. I had no shot in hell. I was going to be short, regardless of, you know, the time. But I have very freakishly long arms. Like I bet you if we stood shoulder to shoulder, I bet your arm length would almost be the same. Like I don't need to stand on stuff. I can literally just reach to the top shelf on tippy toes. And if
Like
not,
I'll walk through like a grocery store and it's like, yeah, I'll get that for you. Yeah, I'll get that for you too.
I was gonna say, or sometimes I'm the kid at Sobeys climbing the shelf to grab the top thing. I'm not that tall, but yeah, it's nice to be able to grab things. Well, speaking of grabbing things, Rhea, I think this is time to wrap up. Was there anything you wanted to add? How about any advice do you want to give to anyone being a home style baker?
Home style baking is about having a good time.
Yes.
And I think if you're like doing home style baking and it's really stressing you out, then, you know, you have to take it less seriously.
Absolutely. I definitely think that's the best advice. Have fun. Literally
Yeah.
have fun with bake. Professional baking is not fun. Home style baking, that's when you can explore. That's when you can add different flavors. That's when you can play with color theory. Professional baking, it's here's what you have to make. Make 6,000 of these by 4 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Go. And it's also 2 p.m. Go. That's professional baking. Very stressful. But yeah, home baking is so much more fun. Because again, it's whatever I want to do. Okay, this is what I'm making for our engagement party, which is next week. Tell me how cute this is. So like Dollarama, like fake champagne glasses,
Mm-hmm.
confetti cake, blueberry icing, more confetti cake, cotton candy icing, blue jello on the top, a ring, a Teddy Graham, and a umbrella on the top of basically being cute little bear in the pool little cake things like
That's so
that.
cute.
Like that shit's cute that you could never sell that in a bakery, and if you did, you would have to sell it for like $6 or $7 a pop. And I was like, this is just too cute. Okay, I had like I saw it online. I was like, I have to do this, right? So very, very cute. Well, Rhea, I want to thank you so much for coming here today. Thank you so much for sharing your experience of what it's like to be a home style baker. For anybody listening, where can we find you?
I am Reekyteek on Instagram. I am still a little baby Instagrammer. Like I think I've got 5 posts, but I'm working on it. And I also am a moderator for Sims Facebook group called the Sims 4 Society. So if you want to come and join us, we'd love to have new people come in and bring their experiences.
Yes, please go check them out. I will occasionally be like, I'm gonna post on Facebook and here's this week's podcast. But please go check out Aria. She's absolutely amazing. Go check out the Facebook page for the Sim Society as well. Go
Yeah.
check both those out. Links will be below. I want to say it's absolute pleasure coming for you to come back here today. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, and I wish you the best. And I will definitely talk with you literally very soon.
Yes.
It's like 12 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.